Hey, what's up? Welcome to episode 4 of the Existential Stoic podcast with Randy and Danny.
Hi, Randy.
Hey, Danny. And today we're talking about none other than existential crises. What are they?
I like to think of them as life crises too, because that's, I think a lot of people might not know what an existential crisis is or what it amounts to, but it's also just a life crisis, I think, when you feel dread. I mean, how would you define it?
I would say a balding fat man in a red Porsche convertible.
That's true, right?
Yeah, I actually stole that one from Tim Ferriss's book, The 4-Hour Work Week.
Hey,
but
that's okay.
Yeah.
No, that's a good point, right? That classic, because that's like the classic image, right, of like a midlife.
Stereotypical example.
That's a stereotypical example of a midlife crisis, which I think people go through, and I think the midlife crisis is like, a stereotypical kind of like paradigm of what we're talking about, but they happen all throughout your life, and especially I think the more you reflect, the more they happen. And in a weird way, I don't think they're a bad thing, even though they feel horrible at the time sometimes and overwhelming, and I think that's the difficulty is addressing them, facing them, and getting through them.
Yeah, it's kind of like this theme of patience. Like, I looked up patience in a dictionary a while ago, and it was something along the lines of the power to endure through difficulties. And that's basically what it is, because I mean, really, everything in your life, every difficulty, you've always gotten through it. You're here today.
Yeah.
But it's just getting through it that's just terrible.
It's crazy. So it just went hiking and all, and like the first day we did, like, I never hiked before with a backpack. So you have 30 pounds, 35 pounds on you. We did like 11 and a half miles, and by like mile 8, dude, I was done. So like the last 2.5 were fucking brutal. Like brutal. My shoulders hurt and everything, but like it's so funny because in that moment, right, I'm in nature, I see like the leaves are changing, like change is happening all around you, and like I know it will end, I just have to endure through it. And like if I could harness that sense when I'm going through that type of thing and use it in life, oh my god, it'd be great, right? But it seems like, but that's such a short, like I was thinking about that when I was walking, I was like, man, this is such a short time period that I know this will end like today, in like a couple hours. But like in life, it's hard.
That's the tricky part. You just said it right there, because you know it will end.
Yeah.
Whereas with existential crises, you don't know when it will end.
You have no idea, right? Like that I knew like we're gonna have dinner. It's 3:00.
Yeah.
I know that no matter what, this will be done by like 6. We'll stop, whatever.
Yeah.
And existential crises, though, you're right. There's no telling when it's going to end, and no sense of how or when or what will even make it.
And worse yet, your mind tricks you into thinking it will never end.
Oh God, yes it does.
Yeah.
And I mean, we always joke, because I think that between the two of us, we've gone through, I don't know how many in our fucking lives, thousands. I feel like I'm always going through one. I mean, ever since I understood what it was, I realized it was happening a lot. But really, I guess in definition sense, besides like that paradigmatic example, I would say that, like, it is a sense of dread. I think there is a sense in which that's right. It's an anxiety. It's a sense of sort of being lost. I always feel like it's like alienation, being disassociated from yourself, from others, feeling sort of alone. I sort of associate all that. Now, these don't all necessarily happen at once or with every crisis, but like this, and like a weight. I feel like it's like a weight. Like that bag was weighing on my fucking shoulders as I stepped each, just I trudged along each step. It's like this weight on your soul. Yeah. And I mean, to be honest, I'm going through one right now, and it sucks. I've been through a lot, so I kind of, know it will end and know another one will crop up, so yay. But I feel that weight right now. It's like a pressure, and it's, but it's, you can't define it, and it's hard to sort of characterize or capture what it is that's causing it, I guess, Yeah.
Because there's so many variables, there's so many things that could be going into it. Yeah. And a lot of times for me, there's a feeling of being stuck, of being overwhelmed.
Oh yeah, stuck is a good one. Yeah.
And just like it's a lot of times, like, life just loses its color, like it just goes to a gray.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it too, right? Like it's like everything sort of like things you're interested in all of a sudden have no interest. And what's actually interesting and I know what we're describing sounds very much like depression because it's associated with it. I think like when you're in an existential crisis, that there's a lot of overlap between like symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that loss of interest, the loss of excitement, of passion. And you know, it's crazy, but like today, I sat down to write today, and I write every day generally, you know, unless I'm in the woods, you know. I write every day, and I wrote maybe 3 sentences today and just gave up. Like I just had no interest and no focus.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, it's the worst feeling.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah, definitely. And so, like, one thing that I think can be helpful is one thing that's been helpful to me when I recognize I'm in an existential crisis or I'm in a down moment is the saying, "This too shall pass." Because so many times, like I was saying, the mind is so quick to convince you that it's going to be this way forever, and or is going to get worse.
Yeah. Isn't that funny though? We are literally like our own worst enemy.
Mm-hmm.
We are. And like that idea that, you know, it will last forever, it's gonna get worse, it's gonna just, you know, or this is how life is now, and like, you know, you shouldn't have to accept that. No one
It's
should,
the new
right?
normal.
Yeah, right? The new fucking normal.
In
It
these
sucks.
trying times.
In these trying times, the new normal. You know what's funny too? Like, I swear to God, I think a lot of it is these trying times and this new, no. But honestly, I think a lot of it too is like all the connectedness and, you know, all those fucking, the constant reminders of things don't help. But yeah, that it's, you know, it will pass. It does, you can get through it. That is true.
Yeah. And if you're having difficulty, reach out. Call a suicide prevention hotline. Go to a crisis center. Get a counselor. Talk to a friend. Talk to a family member. And also, don't feel guilty about it, because guess what? You're not the only person going through it.
Yeah, that's the other. That is, you know, as soon as we started talking about it, we realized we've been going through them both like so many times, and like luckily we both had somebody we can talk to. But it's something everyone goes through in life. On a side note, they just approved the 3-digit suicide hotline number. Did you hear that?
No, what is
so
it?
Right now it's a 10-digit number, and I don't know off the top of my head. I think it's 1-800. I don't want to say the wrong thing. Look it up. But anyway, but the new number will be 988.
Ah, there we
Similar
go.
to like 911. Yeah. Something easy to remember. So they were saying, you know, in a crisis, you don't want to have to punch in a 10-digit number.
Yeah.
Right, if you need it. Apparently it'll go live in 2 years.
Ah.
Because, well, that's so that everyone, I guess, can adjust, and it's a process to, you know, but that's
could
good.
have both numbers working.
No kidding, right?
Yeah.
But that's good news either way, though.
Makes
So
sense.
that's good news for 2 years down the road.
Dude, easy to remember because it's 9, and then it's the speed of Back to the Future DeLorean.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Simple.
988. Well, it's funny. Did you know that? So over the last 6 months during this whole pandemic, you know, the suicide hotlines have been blowing up from their regular numbers. And, you know, I mean, we forget how important of a service that is because, you know, you don't, it's one of those things that you don't really think about it until you need to use it, you know, sort of deal. But I think it's important to keep in mind, like we had talked about this last time, but, you know, just the fact that everyone, you know, this sort of, I don't know, this fact that, you know, reminding people, having commercials to remind people to ask their friends how they're doing and stuff, and like things like that are interesting because I feel like there's not the type of connection maybe there used to be, even though there's more connections, and that's part of the problem.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny actually. So I went camping and it was with my fiance and her father and a couple of his friends. They're older, and one of his friends has a daughter. She's, I guess, in her 20s, and she had said to him like, oh, you know, she had remarked like he had a lot of cool friends like her father does, and she's like I don't have any friends like that, and like it's something I've seen a lot, like where younger generations, they don't have the types of friends that the older generations had, and I think a lot of it has to do with internet, social media, and connections like that are less meaningful.
Isn't that crazy that was supposed to make life easier and make us more connected, and it's made us more disconnected?
Well, you know, as soon as he said that, I was thinking, because we grew up, you know, we got cell phones in high school. So before that, they didn't exist, you know, and like friendships were different. You didn't have that. You had to plan. You had to meet obligations.
And you had to show up. Like, until Facebook was around, you didn't flake on people.
No, you couldn't.
Yeah, because if you were a social outcast. Like, nobody would hang out with you if you flaked.
And if something happened that you weren't going to make it, you had to notify people by phone ahead of time, or they had no fucking clue where you were.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I mean, like, not everyone had pagers, and even then, they weren't even that helpful. Because you had to find a phone. So it's like, you know, it's interesting, but like text messaging and stuff, they made it so easy to just bail. Like, you used to go out even when you didn't feel good, and I think that helped, right?
Yeah.
You know,
always.
I remember being younger, dude, being anxious, being depressed and like realizing, oh crap, I made a plan on Friday night to go out, so I went out anyway, and I would feel better because I was with my friends.
Right.
And that camaraderie, that helped a lot, and we don't have that. I think people, it's so easy to be like, nah, sorry,
Yeah,
next time.
That's one thing that's so helpful during existential crises, is just to go out even though you don't feel like it. Every time I've felt shitty and I go out anyways, I always feel better. There's some new experience. It's much better than sitting at home by myself.
Today, dude, I didn't want to go out tonight, to be honest. Like, I wanted to see you really bad.
Danny.
Well, I did. I did want to see you, asshole. No. I didn't want to see your dumbass. No, but I wanted to see you, but I also didn't want to, like, before I left, I was, like, laying in bed, and I didn't really want to get up, and I was like, oh, man. But no, I'm happy I came out. I always am when I see you, and it's always nice to see you, and I think and getting out of that situation, because that's a big part of it. It's like panic attacks, too. A lot of these have similar things you can do to help yourself. Change your situation. Go out in nature is very helpful, I think. And it's hard because, you come back and the things will still be there, whatever it is. Should we talk about
but you get a break for a little bit.
Yeah, you do. And a break's important. We need to give ourselves breaks. I think that is crucial.
And for anyone who's still listening, the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number is 1-800-273-8255. Put that on speed dial on your phone in case you ever need it. Or somebody else does. That way you'll have it.
It's a good thing to have. Everyone should have access to that and know what it is. Yeah, existential crises they're interesting though, right? Because we're conscious beings, and this is one of the things we face. We face questioning. I always think about this with ethics. Like the first time a humanoid type thing was able to look at its action and imagine doing it differently, that's when we were fucked. Because that's when all of a sudden evaluations started, judgments started, and all of a sudden we started second guessing ourselves, looking back on our past, wondering what would have been
with other people. Like I always thought, the phrase "keeping up with the Joneses." Like, I always thought my whole entire life, like, I don't care about the Joneses. I don't
even know the Joneses.
That doesn't bother me. But then I look at how often I compare myself to others. Like the YouTube channel that I have, I'm always comparing myself to other people there. And it's just crazy how often it happens. And we were talking about this in another episode, how, like, if you compare yourself to yourself years ago, it's like, clearly you're doing better.
Yeah.
But the problem is, we compare ourselves to this one aspect of somebody that they're showing, and then we don't meet up with that person in that aspect. We don't meet up with another person in another aspect, another person in another aspect.
We might look at one person for their physical appearance, another person for their wealth, another person for their seeming happiness.
Yeah, we look at, like, Jeff Bezos for his business sense and Deepak Chopra for his spirituality. And we're like, what's wrong with me? How come I'm not doing this?
And we fail to see, too, the whole person. I think that's important, too. Our society doesn't really it really doesn't, I think, help with full development in the first place. The need to specialize in everything, and that's critical too. Developing as a whole person, and remembering that the people you're comparing yourself to, you're probably only comparing yourself to one facet of their life, and you're not looking at the whole person. And a lot of those individuals also have their own problems.
Do you ever think that your existential crises have something about impatience or wanting to be somewhere other than you are?
Do I? Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with impatience and expectation. I think a lot of times, like, I look at, it's hard to describe sometimes, but it's like I'll start to feel trapped, and I start to feel alienated and distant, and I start to lose interest in things. And part of it is, I think that I imagine being somewhere that I'm in a certain place in my life, either usually with respect to one thing, whether it's work, my relationship, happiness, and it's like a realization that I'm not there, and then like that starts to weigh on me, and then it's this snowball effect, which I think a lot of times it is coupled with panic attacks too, where it's like you get overwhelmed by it, and it's hard though, because it's also like this. It's like a feeling too of, I get it a lot with not feeling like I'm not fitting in with the rest of society, especially when I listen to the news and listen to what's going on. I start to feel like really detached and uninterested in this world, and then I feel like there's a and then I start to think there's a problem with me, but it's not a problem with me. You know what I mean? Like it's I think a lot of people go through that.
Yeah, and it's crazy because it seems like the world is trying to quarantine each of us, to separate us. And it's like for so long the prison system used solitary confinement as like a cruel and unusual punishment.
They still use it.
They still use it.
Yeah, it's
and
horrible.
They know that solitary confinement is like one of the worst things that you can do to people.
It can cause lifelong mental problems and like psychological problems because, you know, we're not meant to be. I mean, Aristotle said it so long ago, human beings are social and rational creatures, right? You need others in your life.
Yeah.
You don't need a million people, you just need some people in your life. You know?
And like, look at what's going on in these trying times where if you get some invisible disease that like 9 times out of 10 you're going to survive from, or probably 99 times out of 100 you're going to survive from, guess what? You're quarantined by yourself.
Yeah.
You have to take yourself away from society.
And that is hard. I mean, you know, look at what happened, you know, when the pandemic first hit and people, they were still using respirators. All those poor people that died alone. I mean, that's a horrible thing.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I know we all in abstract sense die alone, but I mean, you know, in a real sense, we also can have others around us, you know, in our final moments. And I mean, for the families too, that's difficult. You know? Comical, I guess, too, apparently.
Well, no, I was just thinking of this. I was just thinking about this joke I heard where someone was saying, yeah, when I die, I want to go peaceful in my sleep, like my grandfather. And he's like, oh yeah? And he's like, yeah, not like the 3 other passengers in his car who was screaming terrified.
Oh, that's a good one. Have peaceful in my sleep, like my grandfather. Turn the fucking car.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
I gotta remember that.
Yeah. But, you know, okay, so one of the things that I'm doing right now, so for me, panic attacks and existential crises very much are about figuring out my life.
And feeling like it's not figured out. That's the important thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, anyways, like it always comes down to either a prioritizing or reprioritizing of what's going on, and sometimes letting go of some things, sometimes starting some new things. But one of the things that I'm doing now is I'm learning the Go programming language from this guy Todd McLeod, and he for 7 years meditated an hour a day. Every single day, and if he missed it one day, he would do 2 hours the next day. And you can tell because he's a very I would say wise person, but one of the things that he repeats in there that one of his teachers told him was, the teacher in a very deep voice would always say, patiently, persistently, you are bound to succeed.
Yeah.
Patiently, persistently, you are bound to succeed. And if you think about it, like we're talking about how impatience contributes so much to these existential crises, just being patient and being persistent and knowing that you're bound to succeed.
As long as you do something. You know what's interesting too? I was thinking about this the other day because, so, you know, you want to make your life better. And like you said, a lot of times these existential crises are associated with feeling lost, feeling like you're not where you want to be, right? Just basically, right, kind of like being just unhappy, essentially, with how things are going. You know, and one of the things that's interesting I found is that, you know, a lot of times you look at recommendations and they recommend doing one thing. And doing one thing is important, right, because you change your schedule a little bit and you'll see those changes over time as long as you stick with it. Like exercising. If you start, you know, 30 minutes a day, 4 times a week, something easy. You'll stick to it, and after a month or two, you'll be upset when you miss it. And then you'll make it up, right? And like, but you have to think of your life too as a whole life. So when you make these changes, I think it's also important to remember that, you know, how can I make changes that will impact the things that I want to impact in my life and make positive changes? And what kind of practices or what kind of activities do I need to start including? You know, it could just be time for yourself. It could be time with your family. It could be, you know, time to go outside and do something, you know, like mountain biking or hiking. It could be, you know, whatever it is. But starting to schedule time, I think scheduling is hugely important, and it's also very hard.
Yeah.
It's very hard.
Yeah, so I hear all the naysayers out there who are like, I'm so busy, I'm working all the time, I'm miserable, every time I'm not working, I just go home and go to sleep or
watch Netflix or whatever, right?
I don't have any spare time. So, any advice?
Oh, yeah, let's see. So, okay, look, I'm all for sometimes. I think it's okay to watch TV. I don't have a problem with TV. But look at how much TV you're actually watching. You know, I think that's important. I looked at that one time when I was really feeling down. I was going through a really difficult time in my life. I was, you know, a lot of struggles. I'll just say that much. I was depressed. I was having existential crises, and I realized I was watching a lot of TV.
Mm-hmm.
And that was really contributing to the problem, because I'm just laying there, I'm not doing anything. So I started to just turn it off, and I started to read and exercise at least sometime when I would have been doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's funny because there's also times I think when you're tired, you've done a lot, it's okay to just hang out, watch a movie, and
Mm-hmm.
relax. That's relaxing. But when you're doing it just to distract yourself, you'll realize quickly that it's not relaxing.
Mm.
You know, and I think that's important. So maybe looking at, and I'm using that kind of, I guess, as an example, but looking at your life and looking at, you know, what am I doing that's really contributing to my state of mind,
Mm-hmm.
my negativity,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because being positive, I think, is crucial and very difficult too.
Mm-hmm.
None of these things are easy, but, you know, even forcing yourself to be positive is helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would go so far as to add that look at the smallest amount of positive impact you could have on your life.
That's a good way to think of it. Yeah.
Instead, because a lot of people don't start stuff like, for instance, exercise or meditation or whatever, because it's this giant big obstacle. They think meditation...
You look at a big goal, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know, I'm going to be a fucking monk. I'm going to lose 150 pounds or whatever.
Exactly. They know what they want to do to improve their life, but they think meditation and they think they have to go some cave in the Himalayas or some retreat.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Meditation, you can wake up 5 minutes earlier, which is not a big deal. You have to wake up anyways. You wake up 5 minutes earlier, and just for 5 minutes, you just sit there and you count your breaths.
Yeah, it's very easy. You know, if I also actually, to be honest, and this is a personal preference thing, and I think it's important to think about this as well. I prefer doing it at night.
Mm-hmm.
I actually like doing it before bed. It relaxes me at night. It helps me sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do about 15 minutes at night. Count your breaths. You can actually get more creative once you start doing it a while. But, you know, don't expect, that's the other important thing is I think when you're meditating, you are just breathing. Don't expect big goals or anything like that, because if you look at goals or outcomes, you will not do it right.
Yeah.
You know, it's not about achieving something.
It's not about relaxing.
No, it's about existing. That's it. It's about breathing. Like when you sit and you breathe, you're not trying to relax. There's no goal-oriented behavior here.
It's not about clearing your mind.
No. Once you start to think that way, it's bad. Because what happens is you focus on that outcome rather than the actual practice.
So let's just give everybody kind of a taste of what meditation is, okay? So at least this is my experience in meditation.
Go ahead, I'll give mine.
Okay?
Yeah.
I have this cushion in my room. I go sit down on the cushion. I say, okay, it's time to meditate, set the clock. And I count my breath. I say I'm going to count to 10 and then start over again. I count to 1 and then start thinking about something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and then after 2 minutes of thinking about that thing, then I'm like, oh, I'm thinking. Okay, let's start again. 1, and then start thinking about something else and go off that rap for 2 minutes. And that's basically all meditation is you have these thoughts that come in and you get lost on a tangent, and then as soon as you notice it, drop it, come back to the breath.
I had actually when I was in undergrad, so this is going back about, almost 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
I had a professor, he actually had a friend from India come and teach us how to meditate. It was really interesting. One of the things he said that really helped me, and I've been doing this now for almost 20 years, I've been meditating. Not always consistently, but I have been recently again. One of the things he told us, he said, people get upset because, they can't help these thoughts, invading their clear mind, right? Which is going to happen. The important thing is not to attach to them, right? And I think that's one thing people forget is you want to let go of the thoughts as quickly as possible and return to the state of being and breathing and focusing on your breath and focusing on the activity, just that activity of breathing. What's interesting though, and what's really helpful is after you meditate, so you do your 10 minutes or your 15 minutes or whatever, you reflect on what thoughts arose. And it's actually a very helpful way to start to work through some of the immediate stresses and problems you're dealing with in life that you might not even be consciously aware of.
Mm-hmm.
This helped me a lot on several different occasions because I found, certain things would come up a lot, without even me thinking about it, like unconsciously.
Mm-hmm.
Like as soon as I tried to relax, as soon as I tried to just breathe and focus on my my breath, right? Like stress about like student loans or job or work or my relationship would come up, and it actually really is a helpful way to find out what's bothering you when you don't know what's bothering you. It's interesting, but it's useful. I find it very useful. You know,
I'm gonna start doing that. That does sound really good.
Yeah, oh, dude, but you gotta remember not to do it until you're done,
right?
Because otherwise, you totally will defeat the purpose.
You get lost in thought.
I guess for me, meditation, I do it. I like to lay down. It's not recommended always, but I do. I enjoy it. But I like to lay down. I actually cross my arms, kind of like, what was that girl's name in the Addams Family?
Wednesday?
Yeah, sort of like, cross your chest. I don't know why, it just feels really comfortable. I don't know why I do it. And then I don't always count. I try and focus on my in and out breath. Sometimes I imagine I'm breathing, I'm taking in good energy and exhaling bad energy. I find that's very helpful. It helps me concentrate on the breathing a bit more. Sometimes I concentrate on deeper breaths. I usually do one of those two methods and try to essentially concentrate on the breathing and then see what thoughts arise as I go. And it's an interesting practice. It is, I think even when it goes poorly, it's very relaxing. So, in all.
Yeah, so that's good. So if you were to say like 2 or 3 things that are the best things that somebody can do when they're having an existential crisis.
Ooh.
Go.
This is a challenge. Shit. All right. I didn't write these down. No. So honestly, I guess 2 or 3 of the best things, I think, one is, depending on how bad it is, if it's really bad and you're really struggling, talk to someone. I think that's crucial because, look, sometimes by yourself, because I'm going to recommend some other things that are to do by yourself, but I think those are not always easy. Sometimes just venting and voicing things out loud is helpful. Even if, and you can even tell the person, look, I'm not expecting answers, help. I don't even want your advice.
Who are some people can talk to?
Look, I think, depending on your significant other, a good friend, somebody that you feel comfortable talking to, a therapist even, it doesn't matter. But if you're going to talk to, I think, a loved one, someone you feel comfortable sharing, your vulnerabilities with, because that's what you're sharing, right? You're sharing things that you're worried, concerned about. But voice them, get them out in the air. Sometimes saying things kind of takes the power away from it in a way. You've said it, you've gotten it off your chest. It's no longer this thing in your mind.
It's no longer a secret that you have to defend.
It's no longer a secret, that you have to defend. It's no longer this sort of seed in your head dictating your life. Right now it's out there. Somebody else knows it. They don't need to give you advice. They might. Hey, that's up to them. I really also think meditation's very helpful. Highly recommend it. But you got to remember, like, the reason why I say talk to someone is meditation do not think of it as an immediate fix. Nothing is, obviously. And to think of anything that way is a surefire way not to do it again. And then the other thing I would really recommend, if I'm recommending 3, would be every morning, I journal in the morning for about 15 minutes and I meditate at night. I use both of those as meditative practices. The journaling is helpful because it's a way of voicing it and getting it on paper, so I can see the things that I'm saying, in a sense. I get them out there, really to myself, but that's very helpful. I focus on, if I don't have much to say, I focus on what I need to do that day, what's just bothering me, the things on my mind from yesterday. I mean, it's a good way to get that stuff kind of processed. But yeah, those 3 things I think are very helpful. They at least, I find usually, is once I recognize I'm in an existential crisis like I just did, I can usually find my way out in a few days now by using those methods. It gives me some direction and clarity. And I think that's helpful,
Cool. I like them.
What about you?
Mine are actually 2 of the 3 are exactly the same.
Yeah, because they're tried and true, right?
Yeah. So talk to someone. Like, I find for me, I close up. That's my like.
Oh my God, I do that too, right?
Yeah.
My fiance is always yelling at me for that. She's like, you don't talk about anything, and it's like you become a I don't know what you would call it, but
I feel like a man, we're not allowed to talk about anything.
Yeah, right.
If we have shit going on, we just have to keep our head down and power through.
And we're supposed to deal with it, then talk about it.
Yeah.
Like after you resolve the issue, and that's idiotic.
Yeah.
It really is stupid.
Yeah. So talk about it, and friends are great to talk to. I have difficulty talking with some of my family members, but other family members I can. And then a therapist. Like, a lot of people are there's this big stigma around mental health and therapists and everything like that. And some people even, they think because you're paying them, they have to be nice to you. And it's like, well, that's their job.
Yeah.
You know, you pay a car mechanic to fix your car, and you don't go complaining, well, it was his job to fix the tire. Like, I don't feel good hiring him to do that.
Yeah.
It's like a therapist's job is to listen to you.
It's their job to listen, and actually, it's their job to listen. And you also, I think the other important thing is if you have a bad experience or don't feel comfortable with a therapist, look for another one.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it takes people, and I think this is important, people don't realize it, but sometimes it takes 2, 3, sometimes 4 visits to find the right therapist.
Yep.
But once you do, it's awesome. Like,
Yeah.
it's hugely helpful.
Absolutely. And so talk to someone is number one. And in no particular order, by the way.
Yeah.
Meditation, again, same thing. Like, just for me, 10 minutes a day is all that's necessary. And I was mentioning before, what's the smallest amount you can do in a day? If it's 1 minute for you, I guarantee you 1 minute a day of meditation will make a huge difference in your life. And then the third one I would say is exercise. And when I say exercise, I don't mean like crazy, insane aerobics classes. For a lot of people, the best thing you can do is just a brief, brisk walk.
Yeah. Exercise, that's a good point. Walking is fucking so crucial. Mm-hmm. Getting that, you know what it is too? Look, a lot of us in these trying times, these difficult times, right? These uncertain times. Trying what?
Yeah.
We've been stuck inside and nothing's open. You might go out and go shopping or something, and that might be fun. You walk around the mall or whatever, but you can't really do that now. It's not as comfortable. But getting that exercise is really important because you get that energy out. It's almost similar to writing stuff down and all. You're using that energy that's built up inside that has no outlet.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. Nietzsche had this idea of that our self is made up of all these drives.
Mm-hmm.
And he thought of bad conscience or guilt feelings as he called it internalization. So we can't express a drive outward. It can't be realized in the world, so we turn it against ourselves. This is like when you feel guilt, when you're stressed, existential crises, right? Something's bothering you that you can't express outward, so you turn it against yourself.
Ooh.
It's like that idea of the energy, right? Like, so exercising, getting that stuff out there in the world, realizing it in some way. Sometimes that means doing something different, but it gets you to use your energy up. It gets you to be healthy and do something positive, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's crucial.
Yeah.
It's interesting, but I think all of these too, a lot of it is just practicing throughout. And, look, not every day is going to be good. Not every day, you might not do the things you intend to do every day. But as long as, like you said, take the minimal amount of time that you can do and do it. Try something, do something positive for yourself each day. You will feel better. It will help.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like, I always wonder, okay, when I was a kid, and this was pre-internet era, like mass marketing era, it didn't seem like it was that important to be happy. Like, it didn't seem like people were shoveling down your throat that you're supposed to be happy 24/7.
Yeah.
Like, you had good days, you had bad days.
And it was okay.
And that was that. Now it seems like no matter where you look, you're supposed to have the sun shining out of your ass, a huge smile, your life's supposed to be awesome. If it's not, you're doing it wrong, you've screwed up your life, and you're done.
What's interesting, actually, on that note? I was just talking to somebody about this. So, we go to all these stores, right? These retail stores, and you expect that worker to be chipper, to provide good service, be happy doing it, regardless of what your BS is that day, all the time. That is hard. It is hard to fake being happy and energetic and even engaged in something that, let's face it, they're not getting paid well. They probably don't want to be there. They also have their own lives.
Yeah.
And I've seen people freak out at these people, and it's like, do you realize how hard that is?
Well, dude, look at all these companies that are selling emotions.
Yeah.
Like, selling happiness. We have Coca-Cola. We have McDonald's.
Yeah.
We have Amazon. All of them selling happiness.
On that note too, what you were saying before, I think when we were younger, we didn't notice it as much because they advertised on billboards and TV, but we didn't watch TV all the time. Like, now you download an app, you play a game on your phone, you see those advertisements, right?
Dude,
Constantly.
advertise you nonstop.
And they're all about making your life better, being happy. Do this and you'll be happy, but no one thing will do it.
Yeah.
And it definitely isn't Coca-Cola.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, look at Subaru. Their whole sales pitch is on love.
Yeah.
Like, if you love, you'll buy a Subaru. But anyways, do you think...
Total distractor. No, but yeah, it's interesting.
Do you think that, so like an existential crisis, for a number of years, it was called a midlife crisis, like you only had one. Do you think that back then people only had one? It was like once they achieved everything that they thought that life meant, which was like getting married, making lots of money, buying the Porsche, having the family, and then they got all those things and they're like, oh, I still feel empty. And they just had one existential crisis in their life.
You know what's funny? Here's my personal opinion on this, and it's opinion, but I think human beings have been doing this forever. I think we've been going through them our whole lives. I think different periods of time, we've been more or less willing to talk about it. I think for a very long time, mental health was something that people didn't talk about. So it just didn't seem that way. Mm-hmm. But dude, look, you go back to, I study ethics. Any time in history, you can find a book about how to live a good life. Mm-hmm. That tells you something. Right? Mm-hmm. That people were concerned with what it means to live a good life, and they were trying to do it. Now, a lot of times that was associated with virtue, right? Or being a good person, which I think it absolutely is. Mm-hmm. But I think we struggle with these questions forever. I think it was probably easier when, you go back to like ancient Rome, right? Big cities had maybe 10,000 people. Mm-hmm. That's small. That's nothing, right? I mean, God, the town we live in, the town in New Jersey that we grew up in had 80,000, I think, or something. Yeah. So we're around more people. We see a lot more variation in wealth. We see a lot more variation in success. We see a lot more variation in ways to live. Mm-hmm. And I think that makes it more challenging. If you lived in a small community and it was sort of a self-sustaining local community where you had farmers and you had craftsmen and stuff, you kind of had to do something, right? You had to participate and contribute.
Yeah, and not only that, you couldn't see outside of your community.
Yeah.
So, like, there was one really attractive girl, but that was it. And there was one good-looking guy, and that was it. And you're like, you know what? I'm not that bad, because there's one good-looking guy, and everybody else looks like a schmuck. So
I'm all right. It's not that terrible, right? Or like, you knew about the, maybe if you lived in with royalty, right? You might have known about the king and queen, but they were far off. Mm-hmm. You didn't see their wealth wasn't thrown in your face every day. Mm-hmm. You didn't have to hear about, you didn't look online at, pictures of the 10, most ridiculous mansions that are almost $1 billion, right? Mm-hmm. Where it's like, how could I ever afford that?
Yeah.
And you're not constantly, this constant pressure, and I feel this all the time, I do. This constant pressure that I'm not doing good enough in my life, I'm not succeeding, I'm not doing well because I'm not meeting these weird ideas of success that society sort of pushed on me that really aren't me either. Mm-hmm. That's the funny thing, I think about that a lot, and I know this is true with kids, right? I don't want kids. Mm-hmm. And to me, I get why people want kids, and I'm happy for them. If they have children, that's great, and they love them, awesome. But I don't want them. And so that was always something that I felt very distant from my family in that relation, because they love children, and all, and I just don't get it. And it's not me. And once I realized that, though, it made me happier, because I realized that's not something I should be looking for.
Yeah.
Because it won't make me happy.
Yeah.
But that's hard to find, It's like, look, when you talk about authenticity and living your own life, I think that is the ideal for a good life, because it's your own life. But it also means, you have to figure it out yourself. So it's harder,
Yeah. Yeah, you have to say no to a lot, and then you also have to be able to withstand other people shitting on your values and your views.
That's a good point too, saying no. Mm-hmm. Knowing when to say no for you is crucial, and learning how to do that. Because I think people struggle with that as well, and especially when you're going through something, agreeing to things that you don't necessarily want to do or don't fit you, I think that can be bad and very negative. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So for me, an existential crisis, aside from the three things that we mentioned, so, there's basically four things between the two of us.
Yeah, right.
Meditation, exercise, journaling, and speaking to someone.
All good things.
Yeah. For me, oftentimes what it comes down to is prioritizing. So, one of the exercises that I've done, because I so easily can be doing 1,000 things at the same time.
Yeah.
And when I'm spread that thin, it just is overwhelming. So for me, prioritizing, figuring out what are the most important things, and not exactly like what are the most urgent things, but what are the most important things for me to live the life that I want to live.
That's a good point, right? Because we often confuse importance with urgency because that's what we're taught.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, a lot of times I think you also find when to say no when you look at what's valuable to you, really valuable. And you know, it's I was thinking about this the other day. I meant to ask you about this, like that idea that we should find our passion, right? And be passionate about what we're doing. Now that's another expectation that makes it very hard to live sometimes.
Yeah.
And because, you know, look, I'll give you an example. I'm a college professor. I love teaching.
Mm-hmm.
Now, look, teaching is like any other job. There's things about it I don't like.
Mm-hmm.
All right? I don't always like grading papers.
Yeah.
Now, they're great. Sometimes they're awesome. Sometimes it's really tedious.
Yeah.
Right? Or like, you know, or dealing with like the bureaucratic bullshit at the colleges. I hate dealing with that. I absolutely love talking to students about philosophy in class. Absolutely love it. I have great experiences doing it. So yes, I am passionate about teaching. I am not passionate about every part of teaching.
Mm-hmm.
That would be absurd.
Yeah.
You know, and I think, but to me, right, like that, I'm very passionate about that one aspect of it, and that makes all of it valuable.
Mm.
And I think kind of understanding that is important, that, you know, you don't have to be this totally, I mean, I think it's like we said earlier, right? You don't have to be happy every day. You don't, every day doesn't have to be a great day to have a good life.
Mm-hmm.
Just like, you know, to be passionate about something, you don't have to love every part of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I read this book called So Good They Can't Ignore You by Cal Newport. And that book is like a must-read book for any kid before they go to college. Because that book basically debunks the whole passion principle.
Oh, really?
Really.
Oh,
amazing,
that's interesting.
Amazing. I would definitely highly recommend reading it. So he talks about how up until it was sometime in the 1970s when the book What Color Is Your Parachute came out.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
No one ever talked about following your passion.
It was practical, right? It was finding something that made sense where you were geographically,
They said,
right, for a good
they
life.
said find your gift, find what you're good at that you can do better than anybody else with the least amount of effort.
Yeah.
But no one spoke about passion. There was not this thing about passion, because passion just gets you into trouble.
Well, yeah, and also, you know, it's interesting with the idea of gift, right? That's finding something that you're naturally inclined to do.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean it's going to be something you love, but if you're naturally inclined to do it, you'll probably like it anyway, right? At least some.
Yeah, and then he referenced all these studies of people with who were the most enthusiastic and who enjoyed their work the most, and it was because they worked there for the longest amounts of time. Because when you work at something, you become good at it. It gives you more freedom.
You're comfortable,
you're able
confident.
to enjoy it more. And then, and that's basically it. The answer to the riddle is just find something and do it for a long time.
Something you can do a long time, because it is true. You know, it's funny. It's so true, though. You do something for a long time, and you do. Once you get good at it, you just feel better doing it. Because any problem that arises, you don't have to seek out help.
Mm-hmm.
You know what to do. And, you know, when you solve those problems yourself, that feels good. I mean, that's a big part of it, too, I think.
Mm-hmm.
It's so funny, dude. All these things we tell ourselves, all these things society tells us that are so detrimental,
wrong.
right?
So
it's
wrong.
like,
I know.
It's so funny. I was talking to somebody about this the other day too. Like, it might even been you last week. I don't remember, but the whole way we educate kids is it's so contradictory to the life they're going to live. Like, it doesn't prepare them for shit. It's not very practical. And the practical things we do provide, we don't put in context anyway. It's like, but we refuse to change these practices because we've been doing it for a long time this way.
Yeah, exactly.
You know,
it's
funny.
Like common sense is not common at all.
Yeah. You know, it's funny too. You think about like passion, right? Like, so again, I'm gonna go back because I just did this, but when I was hiking, right, I love being out in the woods. It's really fun. Dude, let's be honest, hiking with a heavy pack on your back kind of sucks. And it kind of sucks pretty quickly. All right? And it's long days, all right? It's very hard. We did a lot of miles with those packs on our backs. And you know, it's funny because the whole time I was thinking about it, I was like, why am I doing this to myself? I don't have to do this. But I really wanted to be out in nature. I really wanted to see this stuff, and you can't see it unless you walk. It's the only way to get there. And like, you know, it's funny because I was thinking about it, I was like, I'm not passionate about walking. I'm not really passionate about hiking necessarily, but I do love being in nature and seeing that stuff. So it's like, that balance makes sense to me. The pain is worth it for the payoff, right? And it's like, understanding that, I think, is funny because it's not that I'm I wouldn't say I'm passionate about it. I just like it, and it makes sense to do it, right? Like, how do we find those things in life?
How do we find those things? Yeah. Well, kind of looking, I think kind of like projecting ourselves into the future, onto our deathbed, and then saying, what do I want to do with my life that I won't regret not doing it?
Right?
Yeah.
How can I live in a way where my life is my own, that at some point I'm not going to look back and be upset that I did it?
Like, for instance, I just heard about Jeff Bezos and how he started Amazon, and he had a very secure corporate job before that, plush corporate job before he started Amazon. And he started this book business out of his garage, and his boss told him, he's like, listen, you better make sure you want to do that, because there's a good chance that's not going to pay off. And what Jeff Bezos did was he projected himself into his future, and he said, am I going to regret doing this? And his answer was absolutely not. But if I don't do it, I'll regret that every day of my life.
It's funny. I mean, this is advice that we've heard how many times in our lives?
3.
But it's, right? 3 times. That's it. 3. No, but it's important though, because it is true. Like, I think regret is one of those things that it's not always easy to tell what you'll regret having done or not done. But thinking in that way is helpful, because it also will help you push yourself to take the chances that you should on yourself. Because look, the fact is too, you might not succeed every time, but even those failures will be a success because you tried something. You will absolutely, every time you do something new, you will learn something. And that is something you can leverage to the next project or the next thing.
Yeah.
It's never a loss, I should say. Especially when you're trying something for yourself.
Yeah. Like, I heard this analogy how in life we're trying to juggle like 3 or 4 balls. There's friends and family, there's health, there's your career.
There's other 2.
Well, let's say friends and family are 2. Yeah. And spirituality. We'll say that one. Okay.
All right.
There's friends and family. There's your career. There's spirituality, and what was the other one I said? Damn. Anyways. So,
those ones.
Yeah, exactly. So basically, we're trying to juggle all these things in life. Well, it turns out that 3 out of 4 of those balls are glass balls. You drop them, they break. Okay. So friends and family, you drop that, it's broken. Spirituality, you sell your soul for money, you drop that, it's broken. But it turns out your career, your job, the thing that people hold highest of all, that they would never drop, that they would never fail, that one you can bounce back. That's what you can do.
Yeah, you can do anything with it. You know what's funny? One of the greatest things I remember when I first started teaching, I was teaching at a community college, and I was teaching for a pre-nursing program, and I had the most diverse group of students in those classes, because it was 17 or 18-year-olds that wanted to get into nursing, and then I had a bunch of individuals who were in their 40s, 50s, even 60, who wanted to be nurses or wanted to advance in the field of nursing. They had already been nurses, they wanted to become RNs or whatever. And what was interesting was, talking to some of them and realizing, like, these individuals are changing their lives way after the point when most people think it's impossible or they don't have enough time. They're taking the chance, and they were the best students, dude. The best. They got like hundreds on everything because they were just thrilled to be there, happy. They were doing something they wanted to do. They finally knew what they wanted. We can always change our life. We can always change the direction of what our career is, right? How we make money. And I think that is important. That's a good thing to keep in mind, because it's never too late.
Yeah.
But you look at these examples, like, I think that's what also kills us. You look at these like lucky kids, like the Mark Zuckerberg or whatever, they come up with this thing, and they're a lot of luck too. And we look at that and we're like, how can I ever do that? It's like, well, okay, maybe I can't do that now, but I can do something else. And I can always improve my situation.
Right. And number one, how do you know it's not possible for you to do that?
Well, yeah, exactly.
Because it's totally 100% anything that one man can do, another man can do.
I meant in the sense that I'm not 18.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, that's possible.
Yeah.
And number 2, you also need to just
do
something.
Yeah.
Yeah, do something, because you're never going to get there by just thinking about it.
I think that's also, if you're going through an existential crisis, I think that is probably the best advice, is do something.
We're going to start calling this the Do Something
podcast.
Podcast.
Fucking do something, you fucking assholes. Now, do something, right? You got to do something, and anything will improve your life because you can always improve your situation now. I think that's actually the truth, right? You can always make now better.
Yeah.
And then when you evaluate yourself against yourself, you'll realize you're doing better than you were. And that's crucial.
Yeah. Yeah. Just take one step.
So to wrap that up, I mean, I think that is important. I would definitely try journaling, try meditation, try exercising, try, taking walks is important, and talk to someone. Those are all really good things to do if you're struggling with an existential crisis. And remember that, change is part of life.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah, well, fortunately and unfortunately, as much as human beings struggle against it and we try to make things the same forever, they're just not.
Yeah.
And we have to embrace that. I think that's part of being alive.
Yeah. Here's another analogy that I heard. Like, whatever you're going through right now is just the universe processing you to be able to handle what it's going to give you. Because, the things you get in life, if you get a blessing gotten too early can be a burden.
It can be a curse, yeah.
Yeah. And if you look back, a lot of the struggles that you've gone through in your life happened because you needed to go through them to get to the other side.
Yeah.
Because on the other side, you got something you would not have been able to handle had you not have been through that difficulty.
Well, it's funny too. It's like those difficulties, those struggles in life, they are actually positive because they do, like you said, they prepare us, right? They make us able to resist or overcome these things that are before us. And we talk about patience, endurance is hard. It is. But you learn to do it in like a little activity, and you can apply that to the rest of your life. Yeah. You can get through that day. You can get through that hike, that job, whatever it is, you can get through it.
Yeah. It's like they say that wise people don't wish for less problems. They wish for the strength and wisdom and endurance to be able to get through to get through better problems.
Yeah, to get through better difficulties, to overcome higher things, essentially, right? More difficult challenges.
Yeah. Because no matter what, guaranteed you're going to have problems. Until the day you die, you're going to have problems.
You're always going to have struggles. You're always going to have suffering. But I think that's important too. Like the more you think too that you can't do something, the more you think negatively, the more you will actually be that way. Yeah. It'll manifest. How we think actually literally is manifested in our actions and in our mood and our activities. And the more we're down on ourselves, the more we will actually do nothing. I mean, it's true. That has been, look around you, look at your own life. I know my worst times in life were when I was really down on myself and didn't motivate myself to do anything positive. And that was crushing.
Dude, what you just said there was something I listened to yesterday by Eric Thomas, the hip-hop preacher.
Oh, yeah?
This thing where it's called I Can, I Will, I Must. He was talking about how, he used to live in, eat out of trash cans, live on the streets, all of that stuff. And the first thing that he did was he told himself, I can get through this.
Yeah. And that's the important thing, right?
Yeah. And I've listened to that thing probably hundreds of times. And that was the first time that it really hit me, where the first thing you have to do is you have to tell yourself, I can get through this.
It's interesting too. You tell yourself, and then at one day, you'll know it. It becomes a fact of your life.
Yeah.
And it's funny. Like I'll be on at my worst, and this was a few years ago. I had to motivate myself to get a shower during the day because I was so depressed. And the first day I actually did that, I felt so good because I had done something. And look, that's a small thing, and honestly, not an important thing. But at the time, it was crucial to me.
Yeah.
And it's like that kind of little step, like I can do this, and then things get improved just dramatically.
Yeah, they build on themselves.
They really do.
The compound effect.
Yeah. Well, existential crises, right?
Existential crises.
Well, you will have more than one.
Yeah, it's no longer a one-time thing. They're coming every year, sometimes 3 or 4 times a year.
Yeah, 2020, apparently there's like 8 of them. God, it's been like every fucking month. This was supposed
to be the year of clarity.
I know, right?
2020 vision.
Oh my God, it has not been.
Wow.
It's been a confusing year.
What a trip.
It really is. Life is funny, isn't it?
What a trip. Yeah.
And it always changes. That's the one thing I do love about it.
Yeah. Not always exactly how you're expecting.
Yeah, right? It can always be a total sideways. Well, that was fun, Randy.
Yeah, good chat. Good chat. So next week we'll be back with another illuminating topic on the Existential Stoic podcast.
Boom.
If you guys haven't, make sure to like and subscribe and click
please
the notification bell if you can do that for
absolutely.
podcasts.
And if you have any questions or anything, feel free to email us at existentialstoicpodcast at Gmail.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for listening. We will catch you guys next week. Have a good one.
Have a good
later,
week,
Danny.
Later, Andy.
Peace.